All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College with what I believe will be the last lecture from the PowerPoint presentations for Terry Felke-Morris's 8th edition of Web Development and Design Foundations with HTML5. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the chapter here, and it's time to talk jQuery. Now, as mentioned here, jQuery is a free open source library. Okay? And it got me to thinking when I was going through the rest of this chapter about a library and why in some ways that name has like a double meaning and both of them are good. You know, when you start to think about a library, you think about a repository of books, whereas jQuery is a JavaScript library. So it's a repository, so it's a holder of a lot of different JavaScript routines. Okay, that's the first thing. But in much the same way, you know, why do people go to a library? Well, if you go to a library and they have up-to-date books and up-to-date videos or whatever, you don't have to go out and buy them yourself. In much the same way, by using jQuery, you don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. jQuery, as mentioned here, provides interaction and it provides dynamic effects on web pages. Some of the ways that you can use jQuery, and this is not at all an exhaustive list. You can dynamically manipulate CSS. You can dynamically detect and react to events. You can dynamically animate. And there's literally, it's almost unlimited. Now there's two ways that you can download jQuery. The first, as mentioned right there, is you can go out to http://jQuery download. And that'll bring you to the jQuery site, which you can see right here. And somewhere in here, there is a download button. So you've got your choice. When you download this, you can download it in different ways. All right, you can download the compressed version or the uncompressed version. Now, the compressed version, just so you see it, let's open it up. Or attempt to open it up in a new tab. Well, I'm not sure why it's not opening. It says, oh, what do you want to do with it? All right, we'll do a save. Okay, and it's probably going to download it into my downloads folder. So let's take a quick look. So there are two versions of jQuery, and I'm going to open them both up in Notepad. Here's one version, and it's kind of what you're used to seeing. A nice looking file with a lot of white space, etc. And it's over 10,000 lines. In fact, it's over 10,250 lines. Then if we look at the other version, it looks like it's 4 lines. It's not. It's actually the same number of lines that we saw in the other version. But this file right here is minified, which means that all comments that aren't necessary and all white space, as much as possible, has been removed. So why would you want to have a minified version as opposed to this version? I mean, it's a lot nicer to look at, etc. Well, the first thing to realize is you're not going to jack with jQuery. In other words, you're going to use it, but you're not going to change it. And if you look here at the sizes, the minified version is about 1/3 the size. In fact, it's less than 1/3 of the size of the non-minified version. So if you have to download that file and have a user download it in order to be able to use the things that are on it, it should download a lot faster using the minified version. So that's just one thing, for lack of better words, to keep in mind. Now, what if you don't want to do that? Well, come on. There, one more. There we go. You can do this. And if you look at what's on the screen there in English, What the author is saying right here is by putting this in, you're using what's called a CDN, which stands for a Content Delivery Network, which means that rather than you having to download jQuery or have a user download jQuery, you access it from being out on the internet. Now, the advantage of doing that is it's one less thing to download. The disadvantage of doing that is you need an internet connection for that to work. Here, if you just download it, it works whether or not you have an internet connection. All right? The key thing, so to speak, when you work with jQuery is this ready event that you see right here. Notice it's triggered when the browser has loaded the DOM for the web page. So once the document object model has been loaded, it's been created and it's been loaded into memory, then in this document.ready function, you can put in whatever jQuery, which is just JavaScript, so you can put in whatever you want there. Now, the example they show here is a silly example because what does this buy you? And it really doesn't buy you anything. But what you should realize is it works exactly the same way as if we had written our own JavaScript function and put it in there. In fact, in essence, that's what we've done. jQuery, more than anything else, works with selectors. And I do want to go out to this site right here. If you go out to api.jquery.com, what you get right here, if you look as I peruse my way through here, is you get a listing of virtually all of the different jQuery methods that are available to you. And these are just selector methods. All right, so in other words, these are different methods that are designed for you to be able to work with CSS selectors. Now, this will make a lot more sense when we go through the jQuery chapter that's in the JavaScript book. But the idea is, for lack of better words, if you imagine CSS on steroids, that's what jQuery allows you to do. jQuery has a lot of methods. You're going to see a lot of these. We'll do some animation. We'll have things slide across the screen, slide up, slide down, etc., slide left and right. All right. Fade in, fade out. So they show an example here using the click and CSS methods. Again, this is a little confusing if you've never seen it before. But you have to realize that jQuery is JavaScript. It's a JavaScript library. And the main reason for using jQuery as opposed to JavaScript is typically brevity. And it can be as much as writing 10 times less code with jQuery. So 10 lines for every 100 lines of JavaScript. But as always, I mean, that very much, that is a generalization. Okay. Again, you can write a jQuery image gallery. One thing that's so nice about jQuery is there are literally thousands of plugins. So people have written little mini programs. And if you go out to plugins.jquery.com, you'll see these thousands of plugins that are available. I'm not going to add these, but if you did, there's 1,000 right there. There's 2,000. There's probably closer to 3,000. And there are more being added all the time. So other people have created jQuery plugins for you to be able to use. And there are a lot of them. We'll look at some of them a little bit later. So in this chapter, again, this was meant to just be an introduction to JavaScript and to jQuery. For JavaScript, we looked at some of the common uses of JavaScript in web pages. We talked a little bit about the DOM. You saw the alert method. I showed you some variables. I showed you some operators. I showed you the if statement. We didn't really do anything with that validation script. And for jQuery, we looked at the two ways to obtain it, using a CDN or downloading it directly. I mentioned how it works with CSS selectors. jQuery has its own methods. You can use it for things like creating image galleries. And we talked, or ended the chapter by talking about plugins. Now, I'm done with the PowerPoint presentations. What I'm going to do next, if you care, is I've actually got a hard copy of the textbook. Starting at the end of Chapter 2 in the book, they have these website case studies. There's a Java Jam Coffee House. There is a Fish Creek Animal Hospital. There is a Pacific Trails Resort. And there is a Path of Light Yoga Studio. When I taught this class during the fall of 2016, what we did as a class is we went through all the lessons of the Path of Light Yoga Studio. What I'm going to do instead of going through all those as a class is I'm going to myself, and I just decided that I was going to pick the Fish Creek Animal Hospital. So I'm going to start in Chapter 2. Chapter 1 didn't have any, but starting in Chapter 2, it says, Megha Patel is a veterinarian and owner of the Fish Creek Animal Hospital. Her customers are local pet owners who range from children to senior citizens. Megha would like a website to provide information to her current and potential customers. She has requested a homepage, a services page, a page for advice from the veterinarian, and a contact page. So this is a very simple sitemap. As of now, this is what it's going to look like. Very generic, very vanilla looking. So when we get done with the hands-on for Chapter 2, it's going to look pretty much like this. It'll look a lot nicer as we go on. But again, it's the mentality of before we learn to run, we're going to learn to walk. Before we learn to walk, we're going to learn to crawl. All right? Or looking at it another way, you're learning to swim. So what we're starting to do is we're starting to put our feet in the kiddie pool. And that's what we'll do in this chapter. So next I'm going to go over this. All right? And you'll see this, and you'll see this. 2 of the pages, I believe, on here we'll build. Okay? So I'm just going to literally hand code all of that stuff. And for every chapter that has this, I'll do 1 or more lectures, hopefully 1 per chapter. So I'll be coming back with that, again, starting on page 68 of the book, and I'll be back with that shortly.